when I come to these kind of events, I'm always being asked, come out and help people have a social conscience about their impact. But I know in this room, I don't need to do that. So I'm going to be setting the bar a little bit higher for all of us today. And this is the thing I wanted to talk about. When we hear what's going on around the world, we keep hearing that if a woman is in charge of the money, whether she's in the middle of the Amazon and she's not in touch with anything, or if she happens to be in the middle of Manhattan and is at the top of a big, Forbes national, international company, she still puts about 65% of what she makes into her community. Think about that. When the United Nations decided to create the Sustainable Development Goals, they did a lot of research, and they weren't really leaning toward one way or the other. They were just looking at people, Homo sapiens sapiens, what each of us are. And they found out again and again and again that if we need to try and help the world, just like we have arteries in our body, and you get a stroke if the blood gets stuck somewhere, it's the same thing with economic flow. And the best thing they realized that we could do as human beings to try and help the world is to actually allow that money to flow through the body of humanity. So the question is, how are we going to do that, especially when the majority of money in the world is actually in private hands? It's not in the hands of governments. It's not in the hands of nonprofits. It's literally in the hands of private entities and people. So when we start looking at that, we have to resource where that's from. And that means we have to find ways to move that money fluid. And I've always identified myself as a humanitarian. I'm very proud to be one of the co-founders of the Minizen Institute. We have international chapters in Japan, the UK, Israel, Palestine, Mexico, 2 campuses in Mexico. We have land that's been donated behind Dallas City Hall. We're going to be putting an AI in there that's diagnosing sustainable development goals and helping countries and communities around the world to self-diagnose. So I'm very proud of all the things we've done. We've gotten $55 million worth of food that would have gone into landfills that otherwise was now redirected to helping people where they were hungry and otherwise would all be destroyed. But the way we did that is we did 3 years of actual data research. Well, that is just too long for many people around the world. So how we are able to put that into people's hands using AI for them to self-diagnose who they are, we're calling it the Vital Signs Monitor in honor of Dr. Don Edward Beck, who was one of the main people who advised Nelson Mandela. We took everything he learned, put it into the AI, thanks to Thomas Q. Johns, our engineer, and now it's ready to go. But here's the thing. When we started looking at all that, I started realizing that was only half the problem. We just recently got 160 families out of the war zone into Sudan and got them into a south area, very safe area in South Sudan. But here's the problem. That's where people stop. Then what happens to them? We talked about refugees. What happens to them? You have to have a for-profit solution to invest in people so they can continue building lives. Now that's where we began what's called UTF Holdings. We have a holding company around that we're investing in the Sustainable Development Goals and to specific demographics. So we have people that are going out there and looking at African American, Black European, Africa Fund. We are looking now also though with minorities and saying, why are we having a resurgence in white supremacy in some of the areas? And we realize there's power when people come out and say, you matter, you've been ignored, you matter. But you can't just say that. When I sat down, and I have, the white supremacists, the thing I said to some of the people who are sitting there, going, Tony, is there a skinhead small scholarship fund? Is there a Ku Klux Klan small business loan entity? Okay, then tell me how they're really helping you. And of course the answer is, well, I can't think of it. And I said, how can I help you? And then they look at me and they say, oh my goodness, this person who doesn't look like he cares. There's power in looking at people and saying, whatever you are going through matters to me. It also takes us being able to move past and look at empathy. People think that empathy is just something that you do when you're in agreement. Empathy doesn't mean agreement. Apathy is an enemy of peace, but empathy allows us to look at someone else with reconnaissance. If I can really understand where you're coming from, I can make miracles happen. I'm not just saying that. We've negotiated the first treaty in 300 years between Hopi and Navajo nations. We brought more people than ever before to come and, up to the Reconciliation Commission for Liberia. We've done so many different things in this world. And what I want to invite each of you to do is whatever you are doing in your part of the world, look at how you can collaborate because it will expand the potential and the passion of people. It will expand potential and passion to a degree that you can't even begin to imagine. So when we look at all this, remember investing in someone else can make that difference. Remember that you are the voice that people need to hear. Remember that your power increases when you help lift somebody up. Remember that as you lift somebody up, you're creating a network that can change this world. But the most important thing I want to leave you with today is a question. And that question is, who are you not to change this world? Because as I tell everybody when I come and see them, if you have a phone and you can put your voice out and you have access to data that only kings and queens have had, you have more power than the majority of women who have ever walked this earth. So what are you going to do with that power? Because anything less than changing it is not honoring those that came before us. Thank you.
People matter, right? And she's making those statements and she's doing something about that statement. Thank you so much. You know, I live my life by 3 core principal values: communication, collaboration, and compassion. Communication, collaboration, and compassion.